So we've drawn something pretty lame. This is still not a great video game, but we have a game space and we are drawing our, we'll call this our player, our ball, whatever you want to call it. This is the object of our game. Now, you can see how if you had like a map as a background, you could draw these things to show locations of things or move them around, or you make traffic run on roads. So I hope that this is kind of inspiring you to think of all the things you could do now that you know how to manipulate objects in two-dimensional space. So this is still not that interesting because most games don't involve just putting a piece on the playing surface and then just having the piece not do anything and standing still. Probably want that thing to move eventually, right? So here's what we're going to do. Let's define some more variables. So we've got wide, tall, size. Let's start talking about ball variables. Okay, so I'm going to say, I'm just going to say b underscore x, and that equals 40. Let's try b underscore y equals 40 as well. And let's do like b underscore, and this is the x and y coordinate, by the way, in case that wasn't obvious. Let's do b underscore width. We'll say that's 10. B underscore, underscore height equals 10. All right, so instead of these things being hard-coded in here, this doesn't really let the ball move. Let's put in these variables because we can change variables, right? So bx, b underscore y, b underscore w, b underscore w, and b underscore height. And that should do it, I think. Is there something wrong with my code? What is wrong with my code? BH, oh, I did a capital. All right, let's do lowercase. Okay, so if I do this, nothing should change. If I run it, it should just paint the ball the same way. There it is. Okay, so the ball is just being painted. I'll close out. But I'm going to make this thing move now. How am I going to do that? Whew, I'm going to make this thing move. All right, so, well, what I could do is change the x and y axis during this loop. The clock tick, by the way, this means it's going to refresh the screen 60 times per second. When you talk about things like video or old movies refresh the screen like 24 or 25 times per second, depending on whether they were done in Europe or America. I think in America it was 24 frames per second, and in Europe it was 25. And then I think like old video, like VHS tapes, that was like 30. So refreshing a screen 60 times per second is a lot. But basically that's how fast this loop's going to run. So we're going to paint the ball here. It just gets painted over and over until we hit quit. But I'm going to make it move by saying that ball underscore, or wait, b underscore x, we'll say plus equals b 1. So what am I doing? I'm increasing b underscore x by 1. What about, and let me change by too, the y coordinate. By plus equal 1. All right, so what should happen? My ball should move, right? It should start here, and then as x increases, it'll move this way, and as y increases, it goes down. Remember, the y-axis is like, it's 0 here, and then the numbers go up that way. So it should move down diagonally. What's going to happen here? Let's watch and find out. Ooh, it's getting exciting. Oh, it's moving. Oh, no, it's drawing a line. So, all right, what is going wrong with my code? It's actually not. It's painting a new ball every time it hits this loop. It draws this rectangle. The trouble is it doesn't erase the old one. That is why it draws a line instead of looking like a ball that moves across the screen. But we're close. We're close. This is you know, you're starting to see it's actually doing something. Let's do that again because that is so exciting. Look at oh my goodness, the amazingness of this thing is just a beauty to behold. But we've actually got motion. We're creating motion. So, boy, your generation has always lived in an era where that stuff is just really not very exciting. But again, I think if you have a little bit of vision, you can see how this is a way to do graphic simulations of movements of things. So now, what can we do to erase the old one? Here's what I'm going to suggest. There are a lot of ways to do this. This one's pretty simple. But what we're doing here is when we hit the loop, we're going to draw the rectangle, right? We're going to draw this rectangle. We go back to the loop and we draw a new rectangle with a new X and Y coordinate. Before we draw that new one, let's erase the old one. So what I'm going to say here is something, it's a command called screen fill black. So let's paint the screen black again before we draw the new ball. All right, let's see. Does this work? Does this help? Let's find out. There we go. So this should start looking to you like, you know, like a some type of thing that is moving across a screen, right? We're doing the illusion of movement. Now it looked a little herky-jerky. What can we do to do that? You can increase your frame rate if you want to. And then that will smooth things out a little bit. Let's try that and see what happens. So just up to you how you want to handle it. And you might want to like, so that it just doesn't go fast, you go 0.5 here. You increase it by 0.5. See what happens when we run that. So it looks a little smoother to me. So yeah, but let's stick to the basics here. So I'm going to keep the clock tick at 60. It's going to paint the screen every 60 seconds, and then we'll increase it by 1. All right, now what happens with this thing? Okay, let's run it again, and I want you to watch what happens. So the ball is moving. It's moving, moving, moving. In fact, I'll make that screen a little bit smaller. It's moving toward the bottom, and when it gets to the bottom, does it bounce off the bottom? No, it just keeps on trucking because we didn't write in any logic that will make it bounce. Oh no! We need to logic the heck out of this thing. All right, so let's think about that. How can we do that? Well, and I'm going to go ahead and make this playing surface a little smaller. We'll make it 600 by 600. All right, so I've got a 600 by 600 playing surface. And I'm starting, I don't know, I could start at 0, right? Like 0 x coordinate and 0 y coordinate. All right, well, what would happen if I did that? Will it start up in the upper corner? That's kind of what I wanted. Yeah, it looked like it did. I mean, moved pretty quickly once it did. And then it starts scooting, and then eventually it gets here and it just disappears. When does it disappear? When would we like it to bounce? Let's logic this thing out. This thing is 600 wide and 600 tall, which means that the upper left corner of this ball, when it gets to where x and y are 600, it's off the screen. Is everybody with me on that? It's at 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, etc. When it gets to 600, it's off the screen. So we want it to bounce so that it's not off the screen, right? So I'm going to say we've got wide and tall, and then the ball variables. We can calculate some stuff on this. So instead of this, I'm going to say xdir. And what xdir is the x velocity and direction combined, actually. So, and then let's create some more variables here. xdir equals 1, ydir equals 1. So what we want to do is when this thing hits the limit at the edge of the screen, when this thing hits the limit at the edge of the screen, whoops, this is not going to run. Why ain't you going to run? What did we do? That shouldn't have killed anything. No, that should have still run. Let me stop this. It's running somewhere. Did it get covered up by something? Oh, there it is. Okay, that's why I couldn't see it. It's behind here. All right, so when it gets to here, it's moving by 1. I want it to go the other way, right? I want it to go by -1. In fact, let me make this thing wider than it is tall, so 800 and 600. All right, so this is just so that it won't be too confusing. When it gets to the bottom here, I want to bounce and start going that way. Right? So its direction of travel is, so when it hits there, I'd like it to bounce and then keep bouncing, just bounce around this thing so that it doesn't leave the playing space. So how can we do that? When do we want it to bounce? Well, we need another X, or another if. So I want to say if, I'm going to do this the wrong way first. Okay? If Bx, if the X coordinate of the ball is greater than or equal to wide. All right? Everybody seeing the strategery involved here? If Bx is greater than or equal to wide, then what do I want to happen? Well, I want exter. Oh, I put exter in there twice. Wider. There we go. I want exter to be equal to xdir times -1. Huh? What's it going to do? Well, instead of adding 1 to x, it'll subtract 1 to x. And let me do the same thing for y. In fact, it should hit that limit of the y sooner than it hits the limit of the x. All right, so if by all right, and let's see, and like I said, this is the wrong way, but only subtly. And let's see what it is, and then let's see what the fix is. All right, so what's going on? Stop the old. All right, and out with the old and in with the new. Our ball's moving. What I hope is that when it gets to the bottom, then instead of increasing y by 1, I'm going to increase it by -1. Oh no, it didn't. Why? Well, okay, for one thing, the y should be tall, right? So let's go put tall there. All right, so let me just make sure this is right. That looks right to me. That looks right to me. Let's run it and find out. So here it goes. With any luck now, it's going to keep doing this until it reaches the limit of y, right? Because y is the height of it, the tallness. Oh, it kind of worked. Now what's going on? The ball's kind of disappearing, right? So why is that? Why is the ball disappearing? The ball is disappearing. Whoops, not that. The ball is disappearing because this coordinate, the xy coordinate, is the upper left corner of the ball. All right, let me stop this execution. All right, so what we need to do is, we don't want it to hit the entire wide. We want to do wide minus the ball width. All right, why? Because we don't want the ball to disappear off the screen. All right, so minus BH, the ball height. So everybody with me on that? Let's run it and let's see what the difference is. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on here. So it's running over here now. And here we go. And with any luck now, by removing the ball width from this, from the limit, then it should bounce when the bottom of it. Yeah, there we go. All right. There we go. Okay. So you'll notice that, oh no, it disappeared. All right. So it works on these two, but it doesn't work on the other one. What the heck's going on there? Now, a couple things I want you to notice. One is that there are two different if statements. Why? Because both of these can be true. It could hit the x and y limits at the same time. Okay, so if x is greater than, now, if it's, this is where we want an else. Because it can't hit both x limits at the same time. What am I talking about? Let's say this is your game space. It can't hit this wall and this wall at the same time. So now I want to check and see if bx I think is it else if in Python? No, that's not it. What is the Python equivalent of else if? Yeah, it's elif. E-L-I-F. Elif. All right, let me get that in there. There we go. All right, so if b is greater than or equal to, else if it's, let's say, less than or equal to what? To 0, right? 0 is the limit on the other side. Then what do we do? Well, this. We do the same thing. We just reverse direction. Oh, how does that go? It goes like, and it goes like this. There we go. All right, so that's our one. And then the other one should look about the same. So we should say elif, which is else if, whoops, and we're going to say this line, but oh no, undo. And we'll say less than or equal to 0, right? Now, some of you may already be thinking like, but the result of both of these is the same. So it's like an if-or condition, right? So this shows you how this works just to kind of illustrate what we're doing. So it's, all right. So let's run it this way and then see, and then we'll introduce the or condition. So let's try it. Away we go. It should work. Whoa, it's not working at all. It's because it's equal to 0 already. So let me kill this thing. Ooh, and it really didn't like that. Okay, so let's say that if it's less than or equal to probably -1, right? Let's try it, because that means it ran off. We can see. Let's see if that behaves the way we want it to. So that works. Why does you not like that? LFB. Okay, here we go. Well, let's see how it works. See if it looks funny. Let's trying this again. So there we go. And now it should bounce off the bottom, and it should bounce off the right side, and then it should also bounce off the top and the left side. That looks pretty good. Let me see, is it going too far at the top though? I think that looks pretty good. So I may have to tweak this number a little bit. Now, since the result is the same here, you don't need to have an if and an else if. You can just have an if with an or. What's that mean? Well, what you can do is just combine both these if statements with the word or in between them. Or like that. Now, just for readability, I would probably put some parentheses in here. And then in either case, you just reverse direction. So basically, if it hits a limit, then you'll reverse direction. So if it does that, it reverses it. Yeah, I think we're pretty close. I'll have to think about that one a little bit. If it's not exactly correct, it's pretty darn close. If you guys can correct my code, then you are just awesome. So this is the elegant code. If you want to have if and else if, or if you want to have for if statements, those will work. This is the elegant solution. So let's run it. And what we should get is a ball that will just bounce around indefinitely. There we go. And we're heading back up toward the top. And it should bounce. Excellent. Okay, so this ball bounces around. Now, that is the start. So now we know how to create motion, right? We draw an object, and then we can just change the x and y coordinates of the object. Well, all right. So what about, can we do any kind of game with this? Yeah, I mean, to have a game, like, you could have something like, I don't know if you guys have seen a game like Breakout, where you've got a paddle that kind of travels along the bottom of the screen. It just moves left and right. So what we need to do here is let's draw a paddle. So here we go. And what I'm going to do is say, this is the screen, some ball variables, and then let's create some paddle variables. Let's say px equals, we'll start it at 0, and then, well, let's start at, actually let's start at like 300. And then paddle y position. We want to start it down, right? So this is 600 tall, so let's start at 550. Whoops, 550. And let's say that the width of it, the paddle width, is equal to, I don't know, let's say 100. Stop giving me that. And then the paddle height, we'll say that's equal to like 20. So now, as we draw the ball, let's also draw a rectangle for the paddle. I'm going to give this a shot. It's been a while since I've done this. Oops. Oh no. Oh no. What's going on here? My insert key is not working. All right, let me try this again. There we go. And here, let's define another color. So so if you want to look at these are called like these are called RGB values. So let's define. We've got black and white, and let's try blue. Now with RGB, it's red, green, and blue. So I'm going to say blue equals, I think it's 00255. What you do is you set the blue number to as high as it'll go, comma, after the 0. All right, so I don't want this thing to be white. I want it to be blue. That way we can tell the difference between, boy, this is just, there we go. All right, so that should work. And instead of B here, I'm going to put P. Now, my paddle won't work yet, but at least I just want to draw it. It won't work at all, but let's just draw it. Okay, so I've got blue here. Oh, why are you giving me the blues? You don't like, oh, PY? Why is there no such thing as PY? There's, oh, uppercase P. All right. So, all right, it looks like my code's okay. Will this create a ball with, let me make this thing just a little smaller. We'll make this 500, and then we'll start this at like 450. Okay, let's run this and see where it draws the paddle. Okay, there's my paddle. That's probably too big, right? So maybe I can make it as tall as the ball, and maybe, I don't know, like 3/4 that size. So let me adjust that. So the paddle height is going to be 10. And let me see, what would it look like if the paddle width was just 60 instead of 100? That looks pretty good. That looks like a reasonable size paddle. Now, this paddle has no functionality. So let's figure out how to make our paddle functional. So there are two things we need to do to make this thing functional. We need to be able to move it left and right. And the other thing we need to do is be able to detect when the ball collides with a surface on the paddle. Okay, so those are coming in a little bit. So that'll be all for this version of As the Ball Bounces.